Well, welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. Wow, since I've done two today. Well, this should hopefully be the final part of discussing the races and their expected classes in D&D 5th edition, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And we're going to start with Eberron, and we'll see how far we can get. Eberron, it's kind of a techno-magic kind of setting. And as you can clearly see, there's an android kind of figure here. If you ever read the book. Expected races. And another thing that's interesting about this is that they also introduce dragon marks. They are basically a tattoo or birthmark that one, well, actually, it's a birthmark that one is born with. It basically says that they're part of a certain household, and as a result, they gain extra abilities that replace their normal racial abilities. Okay, starting off, we have changelings. Basically, these guys, their faces, well, they're basically, their faces, to describe them as extremely pale and devoid of color is fairly accurate. Especially since the depiction shown has a guy with a white face, with a very white skin, pale skin. Albino doesn't even come close to how white this person's face is. But say nothing about their hair. This is because they would change their face, and I'm presuming their hair and everything else, to make them look like somebody else. You know, because they have like certain personas, certain masks, as it were. Let's see here. They have a +2 to charisma, which kind of fits, and a +1 in any other skill. So, what this tells me is that, first off, they're good as being a bard, sorcerer, or warlock, or if you place that +1 towards strength, paladin. Good picks. Kind of chaotic. More like a pragmatic neutral. They are always medium. They are a shape changer. They can make themselves, they can change what they look like, change the sound of their voice. Basically, if they want to make themselves look like a man or a woman, they can do that. And if they want to make themselves change from a man to a woman or a woman to man, then you can do it. And basically, it's a great way to do subterfuge, you know. Like I say, you're trying to infiltrate a place, they're good for that, you know. Disguise kit's useless on these guys. Although they can't make themselves look like somebody they've never seen before. And basically, what they need is arms and legs, so changeling can't turn themselves into a centaur or an Aarakocra. And don't turn them into a trike because they can't swim, and don't turn them into a tabaxi because they can't climb. But, like I said, it's a great way to infiltrate a place, you know. You're trying to make yourself look like a guard is supposed to be guarding some sort of treasure. Boop, boop, boop. You know, great for one of those breaking an entry type of missions. Changeling instincts, they are proficient with 2 of the following of their choice: deception, insight, intimidation, and persuasion. Personally, I agree with this guy, a merchant background, which has insight and persuasion, because let's face it, if you're a merchant, you got to make sure that nobody's trying to steal from you. That way, you can then snag, deception and intimidation. So The only thing you have left is performance, but like I said, it's a great, I mean, if you want to go for, also if you want to make charisma your dumb stat, still want to be decent with the talking, this is actually a good pick, you know. Let's see here. For languages, you can speak, read, and write Common and 2 other languages of your choice. Depends on, like say, if you want to pretend to be an orc most of the time, well, Orcish is a big, good language to pick for an orc, eh? Likewise, if you want to, or something that's kind of fitting of the race you like making yourself look like. Okay, Dragonborn and Dwarves are same as any place else. Elves are the same, although there's a couple of different cultures, you know, depending on High Elves and Wood Elves, they got different backgrounds. They even have an interesting sword, the double-bladed scimitar, and a feat that goes with it. Those are some dragon marks. You got gnomes. Okay, there's the goblinoids, that's goblins, hobgoblins, and bugbears. Their stats are the same as those in Volos, so, you know, other than leaning towards a more neutrality, you know, like a chaotic neutral sort of thing. You have half-elves, you have halflings, kind of interesting for some of the stories, you know. I mean, basically this kind of deals with, like, the stories. Okay, you have the Kalishtar. Basically, they're like a human who's got another spirit possessing them, although they may not necessarily be human. They have a +2 to wisdom and a +1 to charisma. So, in this case, you know, for wisdom, we're looking at ranger, cleric, druid, monk, and of course +1 to charisma, so bard, warlock, sorcerer, paladin. Although one thing that's kind of useful about them is that they have resistance to psychic damage, so it's kind of a mishmash. But making them a total warrior barbarian might be kind of interesting. Reason is they get resistance to all but psychic damage. Throw this in, they have resistance to that now. So, something to think of. And of course, now with Tasha's being the way it is, you can change this guy's stats around. I'll get into Tasha's in a little bit. Orcs and half orcs. With Eberron and also Wildemount, they drop the -2 to intelligence. They drop that automatically. In fact, you know, Volos has been updated to get rid of that from our orc friends. And now they have primal intuition, where they can choose 2 of the following skills: animal handling, insight, intimidation, medicine, nature, and perception, and survival, instead of just intimidation. You know, so something to think on. You know, that way they're not just going around intimidating folks. Now, let's see here. They can be more of a druidic sort of person. In fact, their culture is kind of a bit more druidic in Eberron. Then you have shifters. They're they have a little bit of a lycanthrope. You know, they have a little bit of a beast. Occasionally comes out during certain moments. And there's 4 types of shifters whose stats all go all over, but the one thing that's in common for them is they have dark vision. They also have this shifting, which grants them temporary health points equal to their level plus constitution modifier. So, guaranteed at least 1 minimum there. And you get extra benefits depending on what type of shifter. Oh, looks like someone's got a delivery. One moment. Nothing important. Might let her out. Yeah, sometimes you gotta let a dog bark. Let's see here. Languages, they can read, speak, and write Common. It's their only language. Yeah, I think they know at least one or two other, at least one other language, you know. Sub-races, they are Beast-Tide, Longtooth, Swiss Strider, and Wildemount. So, Beast-Tide, their stats go. They're kind of they draw strength and stability from the beast within. Usually takes aspects from the bear or the boar, but could embody any creature known for its toughness. So, let's see here, +2 to Constitution and +1 to Strength. So, anything strength-based, barbarian, strength-based fighter, paladin. They have proficiency in the athletic skill, and their shifting feature is they gain 1d6 additional temporary hit points and a +1 to their armor class. While shifted. You have Longtooth. Let's see here. They have canine features that become more pronounced as they shift, but they might instead draw on tigers, hyenas, or other predators. +2 to Strength, +1 to Dexterity. So, a lot of martial-based characters, you know, strength-based fighters, strength-based. You have barbarians, paladins, and of course for Dexterity, you were looking at Dexterity-based fighters. We're looking at the Ranger, we're looking at the Rogue, or anybody that would benefit from Dexterity. They have proficiency with the Intimidation skill. And while shifted, they can use their elongated fangs to make an unarmed strike as a bonus action. If you hit with your fangs, you can deal piercing damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier instead of the bludgeoning damage as normal for an unarmored strike, which is 1 plus strength modifier. So, it's kind of good. And you have Swiss Stride. +2 to Dex, +1 to Charisma. So, and now she went back in. Let's use Swiss Stride, +2 to Dex and +1 to Charisma. So, again, we're looking at a lot of your Dexterity-based guys. And your Charisma, again, anybody that enjoys Charisma. In fact, our Swiss Striders might make a good rogue. Rogues love Charisma for the deception. So, let's see here. Graceful, quick, typically feline in nature, kind of aloof and difficult to pin down physically or socially. Proficiency with acrobatics. And while shifted, they have an addition. Their walking speed increases by 10 feet. Additionally, you can move up to 10 feet as a reaction when a creature ends its turn within 5 feet of you. Does not provoke opportunity attacks. It's a reaction. So, something to think on if you're, say, a wizard or sorcerer or someone who's got really low HP and some big fella just came within your personal space. You might want to back off from them. Or at least, to make sure that somebody else is a little bit closer than you. Then we have the Wild Hunt. They are always wary of possible threats. +2 to wisdom, +1 to dexterity. So, something like a ranger or a monk, good pick for that guy. Or clerics, druids, they benefit. They have proficiency with the survivor skill. And while shifted, they have advantage on wisdom checks. And no creature within 30 feet of you can make an attack with advantage against you unless you are incapacitated. So, that's kind of cool. Tieflings, basically same as any other tiefling. And now we have the Warforged. They're like golems, as it were, made from enchanted metal, stone, wood, living steel and stone. They're like robots, okay, of this world. Androids, that sort of thing. +2 to Constitution, and one other ability score of your choice increases by 1. So, you're looking at, well, anything. A Warforged could be anything. Nothing is stopping them. They could be. They could be anything and fit. They have constructed resilience. They basically have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance to poison damage. So that's kind of cool because poison damage is kind of common. And you don't need to eat, breathe, or drink. So, well, look at it this way. You can carry that extra week's worth of rations because hey, sometimes the survivor is starving. Have some food. You're immune to disease. Kind of useful in certain situations. Don't need to sleep, and magic doesn't put you to sleep. That might be useful when you're dealing with guys who like to cast the sleep spell. Sentry's Rest. When you take a long rest, you must spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state rather than sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but it doesn't render you unconscious, and you can see and hear as normal. So, that's kind of cool. Integrated Protection. Your body is built in defensive layers, which can be enhanced with armor. You gain a +1 bonus to armor class. You can only don armor with which you have proficiency. To don armor, you must incorporate it into your body over the course of an hour, during which you must remain in contact with the armor. And while you live, your armor can't be removed from your body against your will. So, prison situations come up often. A player characters get captured. This guy, well, he could be wearing his full plate armor and, sorry bub, you can't take it off of me. Don't work that way. Well, guess what? When you finally do escape, guess who's standing out in front? If you're wearing plate armor, you're standing out there in front because you got that 18 AC. While everybody else, unless you're a monk or barbarian, well, they might be a little squishier than normal. Or you're one of those fellas who's got an inborn AC. As to your specialized design, you have one skill proficiency and one tool proficiency of your choice, so that's kind of cool, gives you a certain amount of flexibility. Languages, you speak, read, write, common, and one other language of your choice. You know, kind of reflects something from your background. And now you have dragon marks. Basically, they're treated as like a sub-race, like any other sub-race. Let's see here. Starting off, we have Mark of Detection, which is a half-elf variant. +2 to Wisdom, +1 to any other ability choice. Any other choice. Deductive Intuition. You make an investigation or insight check. You can roll a d4 and add the number rolled to the ability check. Kind of useful there. You can cast Detect Magic and Detect Poison and Disease spells with this trait. Also, level 3, you can cast See Invisibility with it. You know, it's kind of useful if you're dealing with a situation where these guys are more like security sort of guys. It's kind of funny that they use intelligence as their casting ability as opposed to wisdom, which they have, because, you know, they have +2 to their wisdom. But then again, Tasha's. You have some spell casting potential if you have the ability, if you're a spellcaster. Mark of Finding is a variant of half-orcs or humans, you know, which is kind of unique. This is the only dragon mark that does this. +2 to Wisdom and +1 to Constitution. Dark Vision, Hunter's Intuition. You can make, when you make a perception or survival check, roll a d4 and add it to the ability check. Finder's Magic, you can cast Hunter's Mark spell, and of course at 3rd level you can cast Locate Object. You know, kind of useful. Kind of wisdom based, so that lines up, so good. I mean, unless your Mark of Detection elf, half elf, you know, like I said, could go for anything. Although wisdom based classes are a really good pick. Although if you want to dump wisdom, you know, that's your choice. And for the Mark of Finding half-orcs and humans, again, anything that's wisdom-based would be good picks. You know, clerics, druids, rangers, monks. And for for Mark of Finding, we have, well, they can, unlike your typical half-orc, which can speak orc, these guys speak goblin. Reason is that the normal orcish language is a dead language, apparently. Also, they get a couple extra spells if they're a spellcaster. And yeah, the Mark of Handling, it's a human. +2 to Wisdom and +1 to any other ability score. And if they make animal handling or nature check, roll a d4 to the check. They'll add a d4 to the check. They can cast Animal Friendship and speak with animals for free. Starting at level 3, when you cast, target a piece of monstrosity when you cast Animal Friendship you can target a beast or monstrosity when you cast Animal Friendship or speak with animals, providing that the creature Granted, the creature's intelligence score is 3 or lower, so most beasts tend to have a low intelligence score anyway. So, and of course, spells of the mark. All of these dragon marks have spells that can be associated with them, provided that you're a spellcaster sort. You have a halfling who gets a +1 to their wisdom, and when they make a medicine check or an ability using an herbalism kit, they can roll a d4 and add the number to the ability check, because these guys are kind of like healers. They can cast Cure Wounds and also cast Lesser Restoration. And another halfling subrace is the Mark of Hospitality. +1 to Charisma. When you make a persuasion check, an ability check using brewer's supplies or cook's utensils, roll a d4 to the check. We'll add a d4 to the check. Couple of spells that you could use. Variant Human, Mark of Making. Let's see here. +2 to Intelligence and +1 to any other ability score. So, again, flexible any class, but they like artificers and clerics. I mean, not clerics, wizards. And when you make an Arcana check or an ability using artisan's tools, you can add a d4. And they get proficiency with an artisan's tool. So, something to think on these guys. And since this is Eberron, Eberron introduces the artificer, so keep that in mind. Okay, Mark of Passage is a variant human. +2 to Dex, +1 to anything else. They have a little bit faster, 35 feet as opposed to the usual 30. Intuitive Motion, when you make an acrobatics check or any other ability to operate or maintain a land vehicle, add a d4. Couple of spells. Then there's the Gnome, Mark of Scribing, +1 to Charisma. History or an ability using collector for supplies, add a d4. So, it's kind of useful. I mean, let's see your passage. Well, let's see here. +2 to Dexterity, so anything that likes Dexterity. And of course, +1, anything goes for that. For the Gnome, Charisma, anything likes Charisma. We have Variant Human, Mark of Sentinel. +2 to Constitution, so that goes for any class. And Wisdom score increases by 1, so we're looking at clerics, druids, rangers, and monks, particularly for this fella. Insight and Perceptions check, add a d4 to that roll. They can cast Shield once, kind of useful. Also, and a creature they see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to swap places with the creature and you'll take the hit instead. Kind of useful if you are, say, a barbarian and you want to swap places with a wizard. Kind of useful in that situation. Mark of Shadow is an elf subrace, and there's actually 2 houses that go with this one. Still, as per your usual elves, for the Mark of Shadow, we have a +1 to Charisma, and then when you make a performance or stealth check, add a d4. And of course, you have those spells that get added, kind of useful. And of course, you have a half elf, Mark of Storm, +2 to Charisma and +1 to Dexterity. So, anything that likes Charisma or Dexterity would be a good pick. You make acrobatics or to check using navigation tools, add a d4. So, these guys are kind of navigators. You have resistance to lightning damage. That's kind of useful if you're in a lightning storm and zap, 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 zap. You got some very nice spells. Then for our sub-race, you have Mark of Warding. +1 to intelligence, that's kind of useful. When you make an investigation check and ability using thieves tools, add a d4 to the spell check. So basically, going down a criminal or rogue is actually good for this guy, unlike a typical dwarf. Warden, that's here. And, yep, that's Eberron. And we have a little bit left. Might be able to get through this. Now we have Wildemount. Let's see here. Let's see here. We have dwarves, nothing special. Although for elves, let's see here. We have the Pallid Elf. +1 to wisdom. So think about that. They have advantage on investigation and insight checks. Kind of useful. And blessings of the Moon Weaver. They know the light cantrip. They can cast sleep spell and invisibility, targeting yourself only. Then you have Sea Elf. I've already mentioned this guy before. Halfling, well, there's a new halfling called the Laudston. +1 to wisdom. They know druid trip, kind of useful. When they reach 3rd level, they can cast the Entangle spell with this trait, kind of useful. Spike growth, Timberwalk. It's a little hard for people to track you down, so personally, when I might go for this guy, is Arcane Archer as a fighter or something. It's just so funny. Humans, well, nothing special about humans. Aarakocra. These are the eagle folk, you know. They have wings, they can fly. +2 to dexterity, +1 to wisdom, so rangers and monks are good picks for these guys. One thing that's interesting about them is that they only have a walking speed of 25 feet, but they have a flying speed of 50 feet. But in order to use this speed, they can't be wearing medium or heavy armor. So, something like a rogue, if they're wearing light armor, they can fly. So, that'd be good for like scouting, you know, potentially pretty good. Talents are natural weapons. They make a D4 with a strength modifier instead of the usual stuff, so it's kind of cool. They can read, speak, and write Aarakocra, Aryan, and Common. Kind of good. Then you have Asimars. They're the same as those in Polos. Furball. Well, then you have Dragonborn. There's 2 different types. You have the Dracon Blood. +2 to intelligence and +1 to charisma. These guys also have tails. So, there's that. The idea is they were kind of conquerors. They also have dark vision. And forceful presence. When you're making a charisma, intimidation, or persuasion check, you can do so with advantage, at least once, so good for social situations. That plus 2 to intelligence. We're looking at wizards and artificers, or anything that likes intelligence. So if you would like that, double stat, and of course, charisma. It's good for anything that likes charisma. So, then you have the Dragonborn, then we have the Revenant Dragonborn. No tails, very hardy. They ain't a fan of the Dracon blood, and due to their history. Plus 2 to strength and plus 1 to constitution. So we're looking at strength-based fighters and barbarians or anything that loves strength, like paladins. They have dark vision, and they have vengeful assault. When you take damage from a creature in range of a weapon that you are wielding, you can use your reaction to make an attack with a weapon against that creature. Theoretically, if you have a longbow and they hit you with a spell attack and they're within range of your longbow, you can use that to make a reactionary attack. Now, furbolgs are the same. Then there's the genasi. Basically, they have some genie blood in them. In general, they have plus 2 to constitution. And they can read, speak, and write primordial. And there's 4 subspecies. Air, earth, fire, and water. Air gives a plus 1 to dexterity. They can hold their breath when they're not incapacitated. Useful if you're going through an area that's got poisonous gas. And they can mingle with the wind, levitate once per long rest. Constitution is your ability modifier. Spellcasting ability, so keep your constitution high. Earth, you're not seeing. So let's see here. Based off of the descent from Earth Genie, plus 1 to their score modifier. They can move across difficult terrain made of earth and stone without expending extra movement, so that's kind of good. Pass without trace, once for a long rest, using Constitution as your spellcasting ability. Then you have Fire Genasi, plus 1 to intelligence, so that's kind of useful for wizards and artificers. They also have dark vision. They also have fire resistance, which is a very common damage type. Reaching the blaze, a couple spells, like Burning Hand, produce flame and Burning Hands, that's kind of useful. Water Genasi, your wisdom score is increased by 1, and you have resistance to acid damage, and also you can breathe fire and water, and you can swim. You have another ability to have some spells. Let's see here. Gnomes, goblinoids, Goliaths. Goblinoids and Goliaths are all the same. You have half-elves. You have Kenku. Kenku's the same as Volos. Orc, kind of based off of the Eberron Orc. Although, as mentioned, Volos has been updated, at least online. Then you have Tabaxi. Then there's Tiefling. And then, here's a real cool race for those of you who like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda. The Turtle. They have a plus 2 to their strength and a plus 1 to wisdom, so you look right away, we're looking at strength-based clerics and druids. Or anything that wants to dump strength, but still want to make it a 10. Let's see here. They have claws, which do a d4 plus strength. They do slashing damage. They can hold their breath for up to an hour. Kind of useful. Not natural swimmers, but they can at least remain underwater for a time. And they have natural armor. They are ill-suited to wearing armor. They can't really wear armor. But their shield provides them with ample protection equal to 17. Now, dexterity doesn't even come into it. So, theoretically, you could dump dexterity and not worry about your defense. And you could even use a shield to gain this bonus. So, now because of this AC, your 17 AC, I could definitely see using like going through a wizard. You know, I would love to play as a total wizard. You know, like have dexterity, your strength as a 10, and your dexterity as 10, and have intelligence, wisdom, constitution. I prefer having the 14 in my constitution, and have charisma be a 12. That way, self-stats are pretty decent. We could argue about strength and dex, but, well, let's face it. You don't need to worry about wearing heavy armor. You can actually be the tank even if you are a wizard. That being said, you do have a D4. If you're a wizard or a sorcerer, you have a D6 for your hit die, so think about it. And you have shell defense. You can withdraw into your shell and get yourself a bonus +4 to your AC. So that means it's now a 21. Of course, you can't really do anything unless you use a bonus action to emerge from your shell. But, well, still, it's kind of useful. Then you have proficiency with the survival skill. That's kind of useful. Speak, read, and write, Aquan, and common. And then you have the hollow one. Basically, these guys are playable undead. Although they're a supernatural gift, you need to have a chat with your DM in order to apply this template to your character. You're ageless. You don't age. You clean the life. When you make a death saving throw and roll a 16 or higher, you regain 1 hit point. So, unlike the usual death saving throw, where you gotta roll a nat 20 to gain that extra HP, that 1 HP, and get up, well, they're a little bit easier to make this throw. And, well, you roll a 16 or better, well, you got 1 HP, meaning you can get up. And it's like, everybody's going to be giving you that look. It's like, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. And you have revenants. You retain your creature type, yet you register as undead to spells and effects that detect the presence of the undead creature type. So, something to think on. Unsettling presence. As an action, you can unsettle a creature you can see within 15 feet of you. The target has disadvantage on the next saving throw it makes within the next minute. Constructs, undead, and creatures that can't be frightened are immune to this feature. So, hey, playable undead, guys. Now, let's see how much more we have left. Well, if I move quickly, I might be able to finish this up. But then, let's see here. In that case, well, actually, well, I guess we'll just leave with Eberron and Wildemount for now, end with Wildemount for now, and discuss Theros on through Ravenloft in the next one. Alright, this is Fantasy Reality, and I'll see you in the next episode. Alright?